2025 marks the 80th anniversary of Thomas and Friends. As part of the celebration, Mattel and the prop store came together and decided to auction off the props that they still had in storage. While it was not all of them, a majority of the props that were auctioned off were items that did not serve a purpose to Mattel and their current plans for Thomas. Many small props such as faces or human figures were sold off, as well as some engines and side characters that never reappeared in Thomas's later CGI seasons, among many other items. When I first heard about this auction, I didn't think much of it. I thought the listings would be something stupid like Gauge 1 track for $400 or one piece of brick building licked by Steve Asquith, authentic, rare, $600 billion, billions must buy. But no. When the listings were revealed, my heart stopped. A good majority of the listings were related to Jack in the Pack series. I love Jack in the Pack, by the way. They were buildings, accessories, and even some of the pack characters had their own listings. I couldn't pass this opportunity, so I waited until the auctions went up to place my bids on the items, mainly Kelly the Crane. However, towards the last few moments of the auction, Kelly slipped out of my hands and went up by thousands of dollars, along with every other character. So, unless you got 10 to 20,000 pounds in your pocket, you can kiss these props goodbye. But this video isn't about him. This is about the 3 lots I managed to get from the auction. In this video, I'm going to be showing off what I won to you guys. I'm going to be talking about them, how they were shipped, and what damages were sustained. Starting with lot number 107, the Sodor Racetrack. This lot contains 6 props found from the Jack in the Pack episode, The Tortoise and the Hare. On the last day of the Sodor Racetrack's construction, Miss Jenny allowed Buster, Max, and Monty to race on the track, testing its safety. But the twins went too fast and crashed into a farmer's field, where a bull met them, to where Buster ends up winning in the end, like he did in the dream at the start of the episode. Starting off small and working our way up, here is the ticket booth building. This one wasn't on screen, as far as I'm aware. I've played the episode multiple times and it's still nowhere to be found. Nonetheless, these models are very pretty. I love all the wood planking details and stained roof. It feels very real. I don't believe the door opens, however, I don't want to pull too hard and risk damaging it, but I don't see any hinges on the bottom of this thing, so I think it's safe to say it's static. Overall, it's a very nice building. With the grand scheme of the scale, you can tell they had a lot of fun with this. Up next, we have 2 signs found all throughout the racetrack. What's interesting about these signs is how they weren't only used in this episode. Multiple billboards can be spotted in Thomas and the Moles and On Site with Thomas, yet for some reason. I'm really surprised these 2 signs came in one piece. I gotta hand it to the prop store for how they packaged what are basically popsicle stick structures, perfectly intact. I can't say the same for how other props were handled, but we're gonna get to them. Shortly. Just wait. I love the details of seeing posters getting stapled over and ripped over time. The sheer level of storytelling that can be found in the simple poster boards is remarkable. I'll never understand Hit Entertainment's budget. But yeah, with that being said, let me know if I can scan these images. I know a lot of people are curious on what photos were used and where they came from, and I'd be happy to assist. Up next, we have the call tower. Another item I'm surprised wasn't damaged during shipment. The amount of detail in the grass is also insane. And for the building that only shows up once, you can see overgrown sections and weeds carefully placed around the base. I'm always finding something new to look at when analyzing this prop. The megaphone on the top is removable and can be fitted on the top using a metal rod that sits in place. Working our way up, here is the bull figure, the one Max and Monty confronted crashing into the field, and the closest I am to owning an actual character, as this bull appears multiple times over the course of Season 5 through the Hit era, and I guess even the CGI series? I mean, if you want to headcanon that there's only one bull in the universe, which I'm gonna do. Sadly, his ears were damaged during shipment, something I was very concerned about when receiving this prop. However, it's nothing a bit of epoxy and aligning the fractures can't fix. And yes, for everyone wondering, his equipment is fully intact. Thank the Lord. I would have never forgiven FedEx if they just straight neutered this guy. And before we move on, here's the bull next to a wooden Max and Monty. And the last item to come from the slot is the largest one by a mile. Sodor tires. This here was the prop I was worried about storing the most. It was only after I bought this lot for the bowl that I realized, oh god, Max and Monty go under that thing. Shit. Also, this isn't made off an actual tire for anyone curious. I've been asked that a couple times and no, it's not. It uses a wooden interior with resin tire molds nailed into each end. The tire is also 104 centimeters long, to give you a better idea how long this thing is. Also, the lettering is 3D. I always thought they were decals, but nope, each letter is separately molded onto this thing, so, you know, that's cool. Sadly, this prop has obtained a lot of damage over time. You can see in the episode how clean this thing looked, only for it to now have scratch marks on the top and loose creases on the upper arch. This tire has truly seen better days, and it wasn't even the shipping's fault, you know, entirely. These scratches can also be found on the auction photos, from what I presume were from other buildings always sitting on top of this tire during storage. Also, here's how big this thing is compared to a wooden Thomas. This thing is huge. Alright, so for lot 89, the tractor. The second lot I managed to snatch from the auction was a close-up model of the blue Fordson tractor that made its first appearance in Season 7. 3 different scales of this tractor were built. There was the Gauge 1, Gauge 3, and the close-up model, the one I got. This large 60-centimeter tractor arrived in a large wooden crate, and when removing the bolts and carefully cracking this thing open, yeah, FedEx did not hold back tossing this thing around in the crate, but I can't even blame them entirely. Upon further investigation, there was no support underneath the wheels, and the only thing keeping the tractor in place were 5 sheets of bubble wrap packed above the body. So, I can only assume the tension of the body gave way and snapped between the front and rear sets of wheels, and as a result the acrylic steering wheel snapped off the main body after having to support it on its own during the whole trip. I'm baffled this managed to arrive the way it did. It seems there was more care packaging the crate itself than what was actually inside the crate, which is very concerning to think about when you realize how many other props are going overseas with likely the same standard packaging that I was given. But yeah, other than the 3 clean splits and the visible crack on the main body's lower front, this tractor arrived in a restorable state. I was taken aback at how many moving parts this close-up model had built into it. All the hinges are held in using screws drilled under the body, which allows these 2 sets of levers and throttles to shift forward and backward however the director needed them posed. The steering wheel does lift out and can be turned. The exhaust is also held in and can be lowered down for what I can only assume to be tucked away in storage. I'm not really sure. This model also has a posable steering mechanic built in, which is crazy for the close-up model that only appeared in one shot. The wheels also turn, but I'm too scared to try rolling this thing around. This tractor weighs a good 35 pounds at least. That set of wheels could be used as a 10-pound dumbbell. It's so heavy. Overall, I'm in love with the craft that went towards this tractor. You could tell someone on the production crew loved these types of tractors and would go all out on making them look as lifelike as possible, no matter what the scale. So at long last, Terrence the tractor could finally be reunited with his cousin. And so for my final purchase from Propstore and one final kick to my wallet's teeth, I managed to win this giant toolbox containing pack scale set dressings seen throughout the spin-off. Upon opening the box, there were already things that caught my attention. The second bin contained a slide open box that had off-rail series, which could mean that these tools were made for the off-rail spin-off that was meant for the focus of pre-existing characters such as Birdie and Harold before Jack came into the picture. Either that, or they called it the off-rail spin-off because Jack in the Pack is in fact an off-rail spin-off, but I mean, cool. It's cool to think otherwise. Shut up. In this box, there are 2 pickaxes, 26 shovels, 23 spades, and 28 rakes that they let the pack scale figures interact with, along with an oil can, a chain, and these metal brackets for presumably holding the tools in place when filming. There were also 3 benches, which one of them sadly in pieces, unironically 3 pieces, like the tractor. Thankfully, the bench was the only item in this lot that came damaged and nothing else. To go alongside these benches were tiny rubbish bins with unique looking trash piles inside, containing newspapers, aluminum foils, and other trinkets that the modelers could find to use as trash. Upon examining the contents of each trash bin like a fucking raccoon, I came across this very logo. Yeah, that's right. McDonald's is canon to the island of Sodor. There's also 2 telephone boxes used on screen multiple times, a diesel pump tank that was seen around the beginning of the spin-off and Jack jumps in, a bicycle with flimsy posable wheels that appeared in Percy and the Bandstand and Mud Glorious Mud, 5 toolboxes that were used in On Site with Thomas when Ned is talking about the operators being the most important, 3 two-wheeled trolleys, one of which appeared in Mud Glorious Mud when Thomas gave Isabella the fuel at Kronk Station. The wheels don't turn as they were likely used for leaning against the figures, making it look like they're pushing them. And then there's one large 30-inch gate, which can be found in, ooh, you guessed it, Mud Glorious Mud. Again, they should have called this toolbox the Mud Glorious Mud kit, but whatever. The gate also has a latch that can be flipped open, but sadly the metal hinges are too corroded, meaning there's no way to open this gate anymore without forcing it, which I'm not gonna do. There were 6 garden benches, one of which appeared in The Great Discovery in this shot of Buster with the workmen. The rest of what's in this toolbox I couldn't find on screen, so if you've ever seen these on screen, please let me know, because I'm really curious. We got one 4-wheeled trolley which can be rolled and turned with a handle. I can't imagine this was seen on screen, as the only time we've seen stations on the pack scale are Kronk Station, and every Kronk Station appearance I don't believe has this. It might, I need to check more. 6 milk churns, which I can't figure out why or when these would be used. It is possible they were made for the dairy barn that the pack were working on, but we never saw the structure finished at the end of the episode, so obviously, we never saw the milk churns, but it could likely be for that. And lastly, a singular rack of bollards that are meant to stick onto the space for presumably safekeeping. I'm not sure why they couldn't hold these like the milk churns or lunch boxes, but it's cool nonetheless. The fact that they made bollards at all further solidifies the rumored pack scale harbor set that was planned for one of the cancelled pack episodes. And with all that being said, here's the little display I set up for everything. I kept most of the pack scale set dressing safely in a toolbox and out of harm's way. For anyone worried about the tire's placement, I have boards supporting the front and the back secured on the top of the shelf, in case for whatever reason the wood happens to warp or begin to split open over time, which I don't find likely, but I guess it's possible. And as for the tractor, I put it above the TV in the living room. Here it can be safe and supported without any more tension between the wheels. But now, with everything shown, we have reached the end of the video. For anyone watching up until this point, I appreciate you sticking around and listening to me ramble about tractors and bull balls for a few minutes. It's truly mind-boggling that these items are in my house right now, and what was once on screen is now the first thing I see getting out of bed. If you guys like these videos, I'd be happy to make more in the future. A big thanks goes to everyone still supporting the channel and sticking around for more inevitable content. Take care.